Welcome to episode 30 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Catherine.
And Kristen, where we believe there is nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. So, hi, Catherine.
Hey, Kristen.
So this week we are just chatting about our favorite fanfics and maybe our journey into fanfics. They're a little bit like of a, I guess, like a hot topic. Like you either love them or hate them. So we're just gonna have a little chat about them and see how we feel.
Yeah.
So, what you got for your what type of fanfics are you into, and what are your favorites?
Yeah, so I haven't actually read a whole lot of fanfic in a really long time, it feels like. I think a lot of the books that I've been reading lately are HEA, and like the people that I want to get together end up together. There hasn't been as many books where like I'll be mad about who ends up with who.
Yeah.
Which I feel like there used to be a lot more of, or I used to read a lot more of when I was younger, I guess.
Right.
Because I'm going for the romance books more now because I want the smut. So they're usually going to be one guy, one girl. There's nobody really to get in the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I used to read quite a bit though back in the day when I did read other books, and I used to write a bit on good old Tumblr back when I was a small child. I feel like, but like with a lot of things, it all started with Harry Potter,
Yeah.
which I think is common. But I read a few serious fics to really get my feet wet, like Serious Remus, Serious Hermione were two of the relationships that I read. And on Tumblr, there was a lot more of like Sirius and the reader stories. So
Yeah.
I ended up writing one of those too. And I also read and wrote a lot of supernatural fan fiction because the brothers are just so fucking hot that
You did. Please tell me you. So I've actually watched Supernatural recently, and they make fun of this a lot on how they always pair the how people have their
not
brothers
together.
paired together.
Wincest. No, I didn't ship
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
No, definitely not. It like maybe Jared and Jensen together. I would do that. I wouldn't actually write it, but I'd think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Not the brothers together. They're like, oh God, too much. Um, Obviously not trying to yuck anyone's yum, but I just feel like they have so much shit going on with their relationship that if you added anything else into it, it would just be such a shit show that
Yeah.
I can't even imagine how it would go. That wasn't a like gross at anybody that likes it because I get it. They're very
Yeah.
attractive people.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then Raylo, so Kylo Ren and Rey, was like as soon as I walked out of the first movie in that trilogy, I went on Tumblr and just looked up Raylo fan fiction and just read everything that I could find, basically up until I saw the last movie and then the disappointing end that was that.
Yeah.
And then I gave up on it. But specifically, a few of my favorite fanfics and ones that I go back to often are Closer by Every Monday. And that's on fanfiction.net. It's a Pride and Prejudice fanfic, and it's like modern day with a ballerina Elizabeth and a Dr. Darcy. And I just love it, and I reread it a fair bit. There's also a Vampire Academy in Dimitri's point of view by Gigi256, also on fanfiction.net. And it's basically what the name says, but like the last time I read it, it was up to like the fourth or fifth book or something in his point of view. I don't know if it ever finished. I haven't really gone back in a while, but I used to check back in every now and then and read a few more chapters. But I feel like I'd have to start from the beginning now, which just seems like such an undertaking.
Yeah.
Um, and then another one, which is on Archive of Our Own, is by Illyrian Tremors, and it's like Reese's point of view of all the ACOTAR books, and it's great. But those are the only ones that like I go back to if I'm looking for something new. Maybe I'll. Well, I haven't really lately, but there are other ones that I would read if they popped up. I just don't see it as much anymore because I'm not on Tumblr, I guess.
That's true.
What about
They do.
you?
Um, so similar, like we have similar tastes in a lot of things. So
Hmm.
I have also sort of, it did start for me on Tumblr and seeing everybody talk about certain ones. Now it's all over Reddit. So like
Hmm.
sort of a similar idea. Um, so I have read like a bunch of Harry Potter ones. The only one that I was really into was Hermione Draco. Like that was
Mm.
sort of my like
Ship.
my alternate universe, but like not even my ship because I appreciate Hermione and Ron together. Like I'm
Yeah,
not
you
one of
love
those.
Ron.
I love Ron so much. So
Yeah.
like I like that they got together. I'm not one of those people that are like, "Oh, JK Rowling was right," because even she said that she shouldn't have paired them together. I think
Hmm.
that's bullshit. I think they're great together.
Yeah.
But my sort of like I, other than that, I would like Hermione and Draco. However, I sort of got turned off from it because I was just scrolling through and picking some and trying to find some that were a little steamy.
Hmm.
And I ended up finding one that was like really disturbing. And I still think about it to this day in a disturbing way. Like,
Wow.
I can still remember one of the lines that like disturbed me the most, and it was bad. So like I sort of can't even go there anymore because of that
Yeah.
one. That one. I'm not even gonna explain it because it was so like, ugh.
Too far.
It
I
went
think I remember you
way too
telling me
far.
about this. Oh my God, I
Yeah.
remember it now.
Well,
I do.
so now I feel like I have to go into it a little bit. It's
Eh.
like an alternate universe where the dark side won, and the essentially like Voldemort and everybody had taken over Hogwarts, and all of the Muggle borns had to go to school, and then they were like spelled. Oh my god, like I'm gonna vomit just thinking about it. They were all spelled where in order for them to use the bathroom, they had to be like they all used the bathroom through their mouths. And in order for them to use the bathroom, they had to be given like anal sex. So like Draco would be like
Plowing her.
plowing Hermione and she would be pooping from her mouth. Ugh, I'm gonna vomit. It was so, and like it was explicit in its descriptions. And like if that's what you're into, that's great. I'm really happy for you. But it like almost physically makes me ill and I cannot see unsear it from my brain. So I
Yeah.
can't anyway. Uh so yeah. I also have read a lot, like I've read some from the Kissing Booth movie. If anyone has
Mm.
seen that, it's on Netflix. So there's 3 of those. After the second one came out, it sort of left on a little bit of a cliffhanger, and I really wanted it to finish.
Hmm.
So I looked up some of those. I actually also wrote one for that because I couldn't find one that like sort of scratched the itch.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't post it or anything, but like it helped me process. And then the third one was just the ending for the third one was just so terrible that like mine now like makes me feel better.
That's fair.
Um, I also read the Pride and Prejudice, the ballet one. I used to dance like way back when, so like I love ballet and everything associated with it. So um, I love that one.
Hmm.
I don't know. Would you consider the like the Lizzie Bennett diaries? Would you consider that
Oh yeah.
fanfic?
I
So
don't know.
there's an awesome YouTube series for anybody who's into Pride and Prejudice. Is it called the Lizzie Bennett Diaries?
It is, yeah.
And it's like a video blog interpretation of Pride and Prejudice. So it's like modernized.
Hmm.
and it's really good. And I would classify that as fanfic. I don't
Yeah,
know.
there's an Emma one too.
There is an Emma one too, and I really like that one as well. It's
That
not
one's good, yeah.
as long.
Mhm.
Like, they condensed that one a nice bit, but I liked the actors that did it. It was really cool.
Yeah. The Lizzie Bennett one too, like the actors in it, you'll see them again sometimes in Hallmark movies, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's Lizzie Bennett Darcy."
Yeah.
And then I'll text you.
Yeah, and they're actual actors, so it was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, really good.
Um, I also really got into Dark Lena fanfic at one
Mm,
point because, like, and again, if you guys have been sticking around and you've listened to our Shadow and Bone back when we did that for a month, um, Catherine and I are both prefer the Darkling for Alina over Mal.
yeah.
So it
I
really,
know it's
like,
problematic. We understand. He's
we
just
yes, we
hot.
understand, but sometimes you just can't help but root for a bad boy. Like,
Yeah.
even though you would never do it in real life and you understand it's problematic in real life, but fiction is different than real life,
Mhm.
which is part of the appeal, I guess.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, so yeah. I've read a lot of where they end up together.
Mhm.
But again, I'm never super satisfied because, like, I don't know. I
I
once read one where it was the three of them in a relationship together, like
Oh,
Darkling, Alina, and Mal.
interesting.
Yeah,
I do think that there's somebody else who's better for Alina, but that's in a future book.
yeah. Anyway, um, I have read the archive of our own, the AO3 ACOTAR one in Reese's point of view that you mentioned.
Mm,
Um, but I tend to steer clear of the Sarah J fanfic. I'm sure there's a ton out there. But I don't go looking for it.
mhm.
Um, only because, like, she is my favorite, and I just, in my mind, like, there's no comparison
Mhm.
to what, like, to what she is capable of writing and what she ends up like. I just find that no one can predict what she's got in store, and it never measures up. So,
Yeah.
but, like, I have read, I think that I also read another ACOTAR one in between, so, like, the third one and the third and a half. I think
Yeah.
I read one in there to, like,
Frost and
see what was.
Starlight.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I like them. But I don't go looking for them too much anymore because, again, same thing. I end up reading, like, the romancy happy ever after, like, the
Mhm.
person you want them to be with, they usually end up with. So I find I really only go searching for them when I'm unsatisfied with the ending that exists.
Yeah. I find that a lot of the ones that I read or go back to are like the male's point of view of a female written, like a female main character book, cuz like I do want that dual perspective of the guy falling in love too. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of the ones that I do go back and read or have in the past. And again, a lot of romance books go back and forth. So they have it anyway. Uh,
Yeah.
so it's a bit different. But yeah.
Cool. Um So we are going to get right into week 4. Just a heads up, we are not a spoiler-free zone and things might get a little saucy. So last week, um, we ended off with uh, Feyre and Tamlin consummating their relationship, having sex, because Tamlin, well, not because, however, Tamlin sent her away and back across the wall to be with her family because he thinks she's in danger after meeting Resand, High Lord of the Night Court. So he thought she was not safe. He told her he loved her, shoved her in a carriage, and shipped her off. And then at the end of last week, Feyre has come home to her sisters and her father, and they're gonna throw her a ball.
Yay.
Yay! Uh, so this week we are actually reading through chapters 29 to 38. Uh, so we start off this section with Feyre sort of having to essentially lie to her family and sort of tell them what she was doing for all that time. Like, they all believe she was with their great aunt Ripley. Uh, so she sort of has to invent like a lie. I'm like, what was she doing with Aunt Ripley all the time? Um, when Tamlin sent her away, he sent with her a bunch of chests full of like treasure, and I'm talking like fistfuls of gold and jewels and like
Hmm.
rubies the size of your fist and all that jazz. Um, but again, her family believes that it was her great aunt Ripley's fortune that she left to her after she died.
Makes sense.
So, yeah, right? I mean, they've never heard of this aunt before, and then all of a sudden she dies and leaves them, like, presumably millions of dollars in gold and jewels.
Hmm.
Where's my Aunt Ripley?
Really, though.
Anyway, so her father sort of Feyre sort of discusses like what's going on with her family. Her father is like taking inventory of all the gold and jewels she has, and she said like he looks so much better. He was clear-eyed. His limp was even a bit better. Like it looked like he had gotten some more medical attention, and he seemed better. Elaine is super happy. Like she's loving her little garden. And even though they're in this huge manor, she wants to tend to her garden and plant it on her own, without any of the servants' help. And like,
Hmm.
of course, they all love her and they do whatever she wants them to do, and blah blah blah. Um, Elaine sort of like says, "Oh, like father is talking about going across the ocean to visit another continent during the next courting season." And Feyre is sort of surprised that Elaine hasn't already been courted, like
Hmm.
hasn't been asked like for her hand or anything like that. And Elaine sort of said like that the season has been strange because people had acted like, I guess they hadn't really moved very far. So like the people that they had all known when they were rich the first time, they knew again and they were back in the same circle. But Elaine said that like people were acting as though they had been like sick or in another country. Like they they weren't treating them as if they were poor and desolate like a couple of
Hmm.
towns over. It's like they completely glossed over it. So yeah, they just said it's just been a weird, like they've been treated a bit off. And
Yeah.
I have to wonder, like, do you think that's just the rich people being rich and being like, "Oh, they were poor, we remember, but now you're super rich, so we're just going to pretend that you weren't and that we weren't assholes by not helping you." Or do you think it's some sort of fairy magic thing where they've been glamored or something?
I think it's probably something that Tamlin did so that they wouldn't have to deal with that part of coming back into society.
Okay. Well, that's something. I just couldn't decide.
Yeah. That's just what I think it is, but
Right.
obviously we don't know.
Um no. Elaine sort of also said that like Nesta has been acting really strange and weird since they got their money back. Like apparently she didn't finish out the eligible like the courting season. She just like straight up was like, I'm not doing this, and like
Hmm.
went to her room. Which I low key, like as much as I dislike Nesta, I sort of low key love that she was like, I'm rich now, I'm peacing out, guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'll do what I want.
Yeah. Um Elaine also let slip that Nesta went in a carriage to visit Feyre, but it broke down halfway there, so she came back, which Feyre finds very strange because how could she go visit Aunt Ripley when there is no Aunt Ripley?
Yeah.
And like, where did she think she was going? Like, they don't know
Yeah.
where she is.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so that's something that we all have to think about. Then Elaine says that she thinks Feyre looks different. And like Feyre looks and I guess she sees like this faint glow from the magic of Prithian. And I just sort of want to like sigh and do an eye roll. Like both for just the of course she has like this like faint glow from magic. Like, oh.
Yeah.
But also, bitch, come on. If you have a faint glow from the magic of Prithian, go back.
Yeah. If you look the happiest you've ever looked, like, ugh.
Like, figure your shit out.
Why did you leave? I can't deal with it.
Yeah. Anyway. So like Feyre notices too that like Elaine has like come alive and like she's never been more beautiful and she's totally in her element and like she makes a really good lady of the manor and like this is the life Elaine was meant for essentially.
Yeah.
And like she's happy that Elaine has like found like what she should do.
Good for her.
Right, good for her. She can run a household.
Yeah. Well, I meant good for Feyre that she's actually not like, I don't know, she's not jealous or anything that
I guess,
Elaine.
but she never was about Elaine. Like she's never been jealous of Elaine, and I wish I knew why because Elaine would actually piss me off almost more than Nesta would. Yes,
Yeah.
because Elaine is like this meek and mild, like soft, like, oh, I can't do that. Like, oh, I can't get my hem dirty. I'm a lady. Like, that would bother me more than like Nesta being like, he fucked up. Our father fucked it up. So I'm not helping because I hate him. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sure. No, I get what you're saying.
Anyway, besides the point. Feyre decides to take some of the money that Tamlin gave her and walks down to their old cottage and the village. And like she sees the woods and she sees the old cottage and she was like she remembers thinking that she found them really menacing and like really constricting and stuff when she was before she had been a Prithian. But looking at it now through a different lens, she just thinks they're like ordinary and small, which really I think shows her growth.
Yeah.
Like she was so trapped by it before. And I don't know if that's because of money or like, I don't know what it's about, but I just really like that we sort of see her in a different light.
I think, well, I would think a little part of it at least would be that like the woods used to seem so scary, but now she's been out in Prithian woods and they're like even more terrifying. Like the chances of actually seeing a fairy on this side are low-ish comparatively. Yeah. So I think that might have something to do with the forest being less ominous.
Yeah. She also like visits the village and like she hands out some like bags of cash to the poor. So like, I mean, obviously she's loaded now, so she's trying to like be generous and good. As she's leaving, she runs into her hey buddy.
I didn't know what you were going to say then. I thought you were going to say X, and I was like, oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
But no, hey buddy.
Her hey buddy, because they used to do it in the hay.
I get it.
Yeah.
Hey buddy.
Hey. So she sees him with his new wife. So that was before she left for Prithian. Nesta had sort of told her that he was betrothed to another young lady. And now they're together. And apparently she said they're super happy. Like they look happy together. And Feyre says like, he sort of like stops and is sort of like, oh shit, like we're gonna run into this girl. I don't want to have to talk to her when I have my new wife. But Feyre just sort of like looks at him and she's like, dude is so human. Like she just thinks he looks so human. So it's like she went Fae and can't go back now. Like,
yeah.
And fair point, because imagine having like a 400 or 500-year-old like brick house of a man.
Yeah.
Like, of course you wouldn't be able to go back to like a 19-year-old like skinny twiglet.
Yeah, with not enough food.
Yeah. Anyway, So yeah, she says she just looks at him. He looks so human and he looks happy, and she says she feels absolutely nothing for him. So she just smiles at him and walks on by, which I think is big of her.
Definitely. It seems a bit sad for him.
He
My
really
brain.
missed out. Like
He
he
did.
missed out. Like me, I'm more of the like, if it were me, regardless of if I was happy for him or not, I would not make eye contact.
No.
Like, I still run into, on occasion, my ex of, wait, I have to do some math, 16 years ago.
Like you've been with Sid forever. Oh, yeah.
Yes. Sid and I have been together for 14 years.
Yeah.
My high school boyfriend from when I was like 16, I still run into him on occasion. And I'm still like, I won't look at him. I won't talk to him.
I'm not like that at all. So I just don't care anymore. I've
I
gotten to the
know.
point where, but I have a lot. I probably have more exes than you do
You do.
because you've been with Sid for 16 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine. Like, but I still find it like I still am just like, nope, not no, thank you. I'll just but this guy is the same way. He also won't talk or look at me.
Yeah.
So it's
If it was
fine.
somebody else, it might be different.
I mean, I only have one other ex and that would be even worse. So
Yeah.
anyway. So back on track. When she gets back to the house, she's like she's being really introspective and is sort of like thinking about how she hasn't painted since she's been back, even though technically she has all this time and she has all this energy and she has all this money where she can just paint willy-nilly, and like that used to be her goal, right? Remember back in first week, that was her big goal. Get her two sisters married off so that her and her dad would have enough money to live off so she could paint.
Yeah.
That's all she wanted. But now she's got all this ability to paint, and she says she feels like all the color and all the shapes are gone from her mind. Cuz remember too, she used to classify everything in terms of color. Like she used to always, like we said, this book is full of imagery because she's
Hmm.
so descriptive, because she's an artist. And now she just doesn't have the urge to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Um So that's something, like, obviously she's probably not happy because, spoiler alert, she probably loves Tamlin and she's not with him. So,
Yeah.
I'm
I,
just,
I don't even think it's a spoiler. I think last week she was even like, I should tell him that I love him, but I'm just gonna get in this carriage and leave instead.
yeah. So yeah, so I guess she's taking some time to garden with Elaine when Nesta comes and is like, bitch, I need to talk to you. She doesn't actually say bitch.
Sure.
I, I'm modernizing it a little. Um, So Nesta says that the glamour that Tamlin put over them did not work on her. So all that time that Feyre was gone and Elaine and her dad thought that she was with great Aunt Ripley, good old Ripley, Nesta actually knew and remembered Tamlin coming into their little tiny cottage and stealing Feyre away. Like she remembered all that.
Which is
And
wild.
yeah, but like can you imagine, like I would think I would be going insane.
Well, doesn't she say that same thing?
Yeah, like she says she had to witness Elaine and her father go from hysterics to be like going like, oh my god, she's gone, like he took her, and like being hysterical, to all of a sudden blank, and then all of a sudden being like, oh, it's so nice that Feyre gets to go take care of Aunt Ripley and blah blah blah. And like at this point, obviously Nesta has no idea what's going on. So like I would also think I'm crazy. I'd be like, did I just dream that?
Yeah. You'd have to.
Yeah. Anyway. Um She said she knew that, like, what they were saying was wrong, so she traveled to the wall to try and get Feyre back. But she couldn't find her way through the little barrier. She couldn't find the little hole. Um, and said that she actually paid the mercenary that bought the wolf pelt from Feyre to take her to the wall. And apparently the trip took her 4 days. So when, I guess, Elaine let it slip that Nesta had gone to visit her at Aunt Ripley's, this is where she really was. And Feyre's sort of in shock and, like, she can't believe that her hateful sister, who calls her a beast and, like, is a really big bitch, she couldn't believe that she risked crossing the wall for her.
Yeah.
Um, and Nesta sort of asks her, like, can you tell me the real story? And this is, like, apart from A Court of Silver Flames, this is probably my favorite Nesta moment. Like, this realization right here. This is sort of where we start to see Nesta, like, humanized.
Yeah. It really does help you like hate her less than you might have in the beginning of the book. And Elaine still seems totally flippant and still just as ditzy and dumb.
Yeah.
But Nesta's like, I don't know, it does really like make me like her more.
But this is the thing, like, I'm trying not to obviously spoil the next few books, but
I know.
like, Nesta and Elaine obviously are staples in the series, right?
Mhm.
As of yet, and we are 4 books in with with one anthology. Obviously, Feyre's written, like, complexly with, she's got emotions, complexities, all that.
Mhm.
Nesta has also been written with complexities. She's got a lot of peaks and valleys.
Mhm.
I have yet to see, and maybe that's the issue, maybe it's coming. To
Yeah.
me, Elaine has not shown any growth or depth or anything. She is the same across all these books. She has one moment of, like, coolness, and then she goes back to being like I just want to smack her.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Anyway.
But I feel like we'll get there. We just haven't had any focus on her really. She's always been like part of the main characters of the book, but she's never been the focus. So I think we'll get there, but still it's hard to like her.
It is really hard to like her. And it, admittedly, it's impossible to like Nesta, but at the same time, at least I sort of understand Nesta's motivation, and like, I understand her character at least.
Mhm. Yeah.
Elaine, I don't. I'm just like, I can't be bothered with you.
Yeah.
She's like the Kale of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I do know exactly what you mean.
Anyway. Um so Nesta asks Feyre for, like, the real story, and Feyre tells her absolutely everything. And I feel like this would take hours. Like, I feel like they must be sitting down together, like, all day while Feyre tells her, like, every little detail.
Well, what
And
else are they going to do?
I
There's nothing
guess,
else to do with their days.
I suppose. But,
They're
like,
high ladies now. Not high ladies, but you know what I
no.
mean.
But, like, can you imagine her being like, and then he shredded my panties with his
Oh my god,
claws?
I don't think that she told her that.
That's the only good part worth telling.
Yes, but I don't think that I don't know. Maybe. Me and my
Maybe.
sister aren't like that at all.
Me and my sister are like
Yeah, see, that's the difference.
that.
I would never, ever. But my sister is also 6 years older than me, so
Mine's 4.5. So
yeah, it's a bit closer.
a little bit. Okay, so I guess this sort of, like, this moment of Feyre confiding in Nesta sort of builds, like, a little bit of a bridge between them.
Mm,
Um Feyre teaches Nesta, like, starts teaching Nesta how to paint, um, to sort of keep her out of the way and, like, avoid the busier parts of the manor while they're getting ready for the ball.
mhm.
Um, I just sort of low key love that. It's
Yeah.
like, you need to stay out of the way because you're hateful. So I'm going to teach you to paint.
I feel like they really have like a bonding moment in this book that's kind of glossed over in everything else.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's like this olive branch is being extended in this book, and then the
Everyone forgets it.
next, yeah, it's like their relationship then goes, like, they have to start from scratch all over again.
Like even worse than scratch. It's
Yeah,
like
well,
it's
yes.
wild. I don't understand.
Yeah. Um, so Nesta sort of admits to Feyre that she hates their dad. I probably would too, because their dad seems like a tool.
Yeah.
And she says that she sort of spent all the money that Feyre earned just to see if their dad would get up off his butt and save the family.
Mhm.
Because, like, it was always Feyre going out to get more. It was never the dad, even though it probably should have been the dad.
Yeah.
But, like, he never did. He never did any of that. So she was just sort of like trying to push him to do it by spending all of Feyre's money. I feel like I get it, but I also think it was not a tactical decision. Like,
No, you can also talk to your sister and be like, "Hey, maybe stop doing this and see
yeah.
if our father is going to do anything to try to save us." And like give it a week. And when he doesn't, let Feyre go hunt and stop being a huge bitch.
But even like maybe do it a few times, but like to consistently do it over the years, like you know that your dad's not gonna, if after a year of your youngest sister having to go out and make money for you, that your dad does not get up off his ass and do it himself, you know that he's not going to. So like
No.
what's the other option? Like you starve to death to prove a point?
I think she would though. That's the thing about her.
That's true, yeah. She also tells Feyre that like she blames their dad for them falling into poverty because he did, like, the reason he fell into poverty was because he owed money to like debtors. He was not a great merchant.
Yeah.
And she also blames him for the death of her mother. This I find is a bit more of a stretch.
Well, I don't know because we don't really know anything about what happened because Pharaoh is too young, so it's not really like she doesn't really remember other than her being sick.
I thought it
And
said
like,
I thought she died of typhus.
yeah, but if there's magic in this world, there's people that could probably cure her or help her.
Maybe.
I kind of get what she's saying. Like in a world where magic is real, there really should be like a way to heal almost everything, you'd think.
Yeah. Um but yeah, so like that's what she says. Nessa said like her dad had a fleet of ships available to like try and find a cure, but he didn't. He just accepted that she was dying and grieved for her.
Yeah.
Um Feyre like sort of tries to stand up for him and sort of says that like he did grieve for her, but Nessa's like, dude, he let her die. And sort of insinuates and says like you would have gone to the end of the world, the end of the earth for your high lord. And it's sort of like obviously she didn't.
Yeah. Well, that too.
Like obviously she wouldn't go to the ends of the earth for her high lord because is the end of the end of the earth just across the wall in her fancy estate with her family, because that's what she did.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I don't know. I feel like Nesta's trying to push her a bit here, which is what she needs. Um, but yeah, I don't think that you can say that she would go to the ends of the earth. She
Yeah,
didn't.
at this point. Anyway, so the night of the ball, and it's the, you know, Feyre, all she can think about is sort of that sentence and how like she stopped fighting. Like she had stopped looking into the blight, she'd stopped trying to survive, and she had sort of just accepted this like nice cozy little spot where she could like spend the day with Tamlin and paint and like have fancy dinners and like lunches and picnics in a meadow and like swims in like a night filled pool.
Mhm.
Whereas when she'd first arrived, she was full of fight, full of stubbornness, and like wouldn't take no for an answer. And she stopped.
Yeah.
So like she got so complacent, I feel like is a good word,
Yeah,
that she
definitely.
stopped trying to survive and stopped trying to save Tamlin.
And by extension, everybody else, because she knows that the blight is like eventually probably going to spread. So
Yeah.
you'd think that she would also want to continue saving her family, so she would keep trying. But yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I guess the ball comes and goes. Nothing super crazy happens. Um, the next afternoon, uh, their dad mentions that he's going to buy the better land since the family didn't survive the house fire, except for Claire Better. They couldn't find her body. So if you remember from last week, when Resand showed up at the spring court and he asked Feyre what her name was, she knew she couldn't give him her own name. So the name she gave him was Claire Better. And now all of a sudden, Claire's missing and her family's house has been burned down and nobody survived. So she
Oh,
starts
great.
to freak out. And for some reason, it's this sort of moment that makes her realize that things are very wrong in Prithian.
Hmm.
And she puts it together that fairies must have come over the border and taken Claire. I don't understand why this is the like why this was her sort of like moment of clarity.
Yeah, I don't really know either, because it's like this should scare her more than anything else, I think.
I thought that maybe her moment of clarity would have been, oh, I stopped fighting and blah blah blah, and
Yeah.
maybe realizing that I should probably go back and keep fighting.
Yeah.
Instead, she was like, oh, I stopped fighting. Oh well. And then like, what? Claire Better has been taken? Like, oh, I should probably go back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In saying that, I do appreciate that what is causing her to go back is more so for a villager rather than like she's not going, yeah, she's going for love, but like that's not her only motivation.
Yeah. I get what you mean.
Um but yeah, so she tells Nesta that she has to go and essentially says like the first whisper you hear of somebody crossing the wall or anything dangerous happening, like grab the family, get on a ship and boot it. Like
Hmm.
go. And Nesta gets it and she understands that there's danger and she tells Farah, she's like, we don't need you, like go. Don't worry about us. We'll be fine. Like you don't have to worry about us. Don't come back.
Yeah.
Um on her way out the door, I guess she's like telling her sister and telling her father that she has to go. And for some reason, her like whatever her urgency, and I guess she's like telling them things. And Elaine and the father, they remember everything, and the glamour is all of a sudden gone. But like, I think it's funny that they remember everything in that they remember a giant beast breaking down their door and stealing her away. And now all of a sudden she's getting on a horse riding away and saying, I have to go back. So it's,
Yeah.
they're like, what? Anyway, I'm assuming Nesta fills them in.
Yeah. Well, it's so fast that she has to.
Yeah. But like she's been back for a couple of weeks, we would say.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
And I mean, it took her 4 days just to travel from Prithian to her manor house.
Hmm.
Um, now it took her, apparently it took her days to find the hole in the wall because again, both times she crossed it, she had been asleep the whole time.
Yeah.
So she didn't know where it was. So it took her ages to find it. Like, can you imagine running your hand on an invisible wall until you go, oh, and fall through? Because I
That's how
feel
you
like,
think it happens?
yeah, that is exactly how I think it. You're like leaning against an invisible wall, like just walking alongside of it to try and find the
Yeah.
hole.
No,
And
I
then
get what
all
you
of a
mean.
sudden, no hole.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, so once she finds the hole in the wall, she um goes to the manor. I don't know how she finds it. Like, again, she was asleep the whole time. I don't know how she finds everything so quickly.
True.
Um, but yeah, so the manor was kicked in and the gates were completely destroyed. And the place, like the whole place is like completely empty and the manor was all wrecked and everything. There was also like blood splatter all around, so she sort of treated it like tracking in the forest and like sort of used it to piece together what happened.
Mhm.
Um, she said there were no bodies, but there was like a ton of gore around. So she was trying to like piece together some things. I think she figured out there was a fight and like people knocked over a table and that sort of thing. She was straight up like Sherlock Holmesing.
Yeah.
Um so she was sort of making her way to the garden when she hears like the crunching of debris. So like somebody was crunching on the ground. So she was like, crap, there's somebody here. So she hides behind a door and like she sees someone in a cloak limping and sniffing the air. So like whatever it was could smell her.
Yeah.
And like she doesn't have any magic or anything like that. So like all she's got is the fact that she's hiding behind a door. So she was like about to like shove the door at the person and like attack with their knife because she knew like her getting the upper hand was the only way out of it.
Mhm.
And so she was about to attack and the figure turned and lo and behold, it's Alice.
What?
Good old Alice, who was not happy to see her at all.
No. No.
And I love Alice.
Me too.
Like I think she's so good. Um Alice was not happy to see her, like I said, and essentially said like she was in danger. Like she's in danger just being here.
Mhm.
And Faye was like, "Tell me everything. Like what is happening? What's going on?" And Alice admits that Amarantha came and took Tamlin under the mountain alive. And this is obviously now we're going to get, I don't know if we're going to call it the backstory, but we're going to get sort of like the reason behind the blight. And we finally now learn who Amarantha is. This is our like explanation. Like, you know how there's always like the token explanation?
Yeah.
This is our token explanation for this book. So, Feyre is sort of like, well, why? Why did she take Tamlin? And Alice says that she took him to make the other High Lords watch as she breaks him. I guess she's going to break him down. Because the 7 times 7 years, I don't know why they can't just say 49.
Yeah.
Why do they have
I
to say
guess it's
7
like
times 7?
poetic. 7 times 7.
Bullshit,
Seven's a special number.
I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the 7 times 7 years is over, and Tamlin did not break the curse, so she can take him. And I guess Feyre's sort of like, who the fuck is Amarantha? And Alice is like, she's the High Queen of Prithian. So when we first heard that name, Feyre sort of thought that it was the name of maybe a high lady,
Mhm.
but turns out no, she's High Queen. So the story goes that 100 years ago, Amarantha came over as an emissary from Hybern. Hybern is another Fey continent across the ocean. So Amarantha went from court to court, making amends for her behavior during the war, like the war where humans were like released and Prithian was sort of formed. Um, so I guess during that war, she was fucking nuts.
It's a way to put it.
She was. she was obviously against humans. Like, she wanted humans to keep being slaves and stuff.
Yeah.
So, that was like several hundred years ago. So 100 years ago, she came over trying to be better, trying to make up for
Her
her.
shitty behavior.
Yeah. So she went from all to, again, Prythian is broken up into 7 courts. She went to each court and sort of like charmed them. And she was like talking about trading with Highburn and better relations between the 2 continents and blah, blah, blah. Part of the reason she went fucking nuts during the war is because she had a sister who was equally brutal and vicious, whose name was Clythia. Terrible name.
Yes. Clit.
Um,
Just say it. Is that her
yes.
nickname?
Oh, that would be it. Oh, can you imagine? Hey, Clit, how you doing?
Oh
Like,
my god, no. It's so bad.
God. Anyway, Clythia fell in love with a human warrior named Jurian. Not durian like the stinky fruit. Jurian with a J.
Yeah. When you listen to the audiobook, you get a bit confused.
Yeah. Not the durian features heavily in the book either, though. But you do. But yeah, so Amarantha has a sister, Clythia, who fell in love with a human warrior, Jurian. Amarantha could see that Jurian, like, didn't really care about her sister and was just sort of using him to get information during the war, like, about the opposing forces and stuff.
Mm.
But her sister, like, wouldn't listen to her and, like, wouldn't, like, no, you're just being, like, paranoid. He loves me, blah, blah, blah.
You're jealous.
Essentially, yeah, she's being a moron, really.
Yeah. You just don't want me to be happy.
Yeah, stupid. So, yeah, so she could see that obviously Jurian was using Clythia, but Clythia refused to leave him. And she also was like, I can't kill him either because it would hurt her too much.
Yeah.
It would hurt my sister if I killed this dude. So eventually, Jurian thought he got all the information he could out of Clythia. So he tortured and killed her and then left her in pieces for Amarantha.
Not a smart move.
No, mistake number 1, dude. Don't leave families alive.
Yeah, like don't. Yeah.
Like, obviously, I'm sure he'd met her. So,
Knew
like,
she was batshit crazy.
Yeah, if you're gonna kill one, kill them both. Don't leave loose ends.
Exactly.
So, rightfully so, he left her sister in pieces. So she found the pieces and flipped her lid.
Yeah.
And I don't blame her for that, actually.
No, I don't either. And it's a lot like I fucking knew it, and if she had just listened to me, so like it's more confirmation that she's right about things. So like I get why she's so batshit a bit in this situation.
Yeah. So obviously this one fact made her detest all humans with like a rage unparalleled by anything or anyone else.
Yeah.
But again, this had happened hundreds of years ago during the war between Fae and humans. So then 100 years ago when she came back, you know, she sort of said like, oh, I've repented. I've seen the error of my ways. Like, I've changed. And like dummies, everyone believed her.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is just stupid on everyone's part.
True.
Like, she brought all these ships of goods to trade with Prythian. She bought her, but like on top of all these trade ships full of goods, what else is in there? Oh, her own personal army.
Of course.
Ugh, like I just feel like everybody's dumb.
It's like a Trojan horse, except for it's a fucking ship.
And it was completely obvious.
Yeah, exactly.
She didn't hide anything.
Yeah.
So like it's a Trojan horse if the citizens of Troy were friggin' stupid.
Yeah.
More stupid.
Yeah.
Anyway, she held a ball in her own honor, which is stupid too, by the way. Like, if you're gonna hold a ball, hold it for somebody else. Don't hold it for yourself.
Love yourself.
I
Hold your own
know.
balls. Sorry. But to be
No.
fair,
Like,
like I feel like it's a time when people hold balls for like, I don't know. They just held a ball for Feyre in the human lands because she came back from helping her aunt. Now she's rich. Like it could be
yeah,
a ball to like find a guy because I feel like that's what Feyre's dad was doing. Was like, oh, you should get married now that you're a rich young lady of means.
I guess it's just like, I don't know. I don't think you should have a ball in your own. I don't think you should be like, I'm throwing a ball because I'm awesome.
Yeah.
I don't. Anyway.
Should let somebody else say you're awesome and throw you a ball.
Yes. Yes. Even like hint, hey, I'll pay for this ball, but I want you to host it for me. Like,
I'll pay you to host this ball for me. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, at the ball, she poisoned all the High Lords and stole their magic so that she would have control of them and control of their magic. I hate to say I told you so, but you're fucking dumb. Everybody.
Yep.
She did not change.
Nope.
Her plans are to break the treaty and take the human lands for herself, for her own, because again, she detests all humans. So every single time they've discussed the blight or the sickness, it wasn't an actual illness or an actual blight. It was just always Amarantha.
Yeah.
That's just how they referred to her. And then on top of all that, Alice adds in that Feyre could have broken the curse if she wasn't such a stubborn moron.
Fair.
And Feyre's sort of like, wait, what? And then we get another explanation. So apparently Amarantha and Tamlin knew each other. Even so, like the Spring Court fought against the humans in the war. So the King of Highburn and Tamlin's father were close and like buddies.
Yeah.
So Tamlin and Amarantha, like Tamlin would see her hanging around. They were like in the same circles.
Yeah, but he was a child, he
Yes,
said.
he was. He was a child. And I'm
Creepo.
assuming Amarantha was an adult, which is hecka creepy.
Mm.
Like, I don't know. Like, do you think that there is well, actually, no, never mind. There's obviously not. I was going to say, do you think there's like an appropriate age gap between Faye when they are together? But there's obviously not.
No, I don't think so.
If Tamlin is like 400 years old and Feyre is like 19, they obviously don't care about a 300-year age gap.
No.
So I guess it's the same thing with Amarantha and Tamlin.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I guess Amarantha, when she came back, wanted Tamlin, for sexy times.
Biblically.
Biblically. But Tamlin had like heard her crazies. Like he heard she was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, heck no.
It's true.
He even sort of like he sent Lucian as an emissary to try and like broker peace because he was like, she's over here. I guess I gotta like work with her and try and like be peaceful, even though I said no to her. But she was not having any of it, and she was like, you sent Lucian over yourself. So she carved out Lucian's eye with her fingernail as punishment.
Seems a bit extra.
It does seem extra, doesn't it? Like you're mad at a dude, so you're gonna carve up another dude's eye?
It doesn't really make sense. You're not getting your point across.
No. So that's why Lucian has like a fake goldy eyeball, because Amarantha carved it out with her fingernail. How sharp must that nail be?
I know.
To
I was
like
just
cut
thinking that.
through the ocular socket. Like I feel like she's got like a friggin' dagger on her pointer finger. And like no other nail is super sharp, just the pointer finger.
Gross.
Anyway, the ball that she threw, in addition to like it being in her honor, it was sort of, she said it was her way of saying she was sorry.
Sure.
Lucian, I'm sorry I carved out your eyeball. Let's have a ball.
Yeah.
Ball, like, I don't know.
Because the eyeball, I get it.
Yeah. And apparently the masquerade part, because it was a masquerade ball. Remember, like, everyone from the spring court had masks on. The masquerade part was so that Lucian could hide the scar. And apparently she even told all the spring court to come and they all should wear the masks. Tamlin
Let's
didn't
trust her again.
right? Like, oh, she just carved out some dude's eyeball. I think we can trust her. It's fine. Like, just they're all being dumb.
Yep.
Anyway, Tamlin agreed to go to the ball to try and like end the conflict they were having without undue slaughter. And Amarantha sort of like, I guess he approached her at the ball and was like, and Amarantha was like, yeah, we can have peace if Tamlin joined her as her lover and consort. And he was like, no way in hell. And he said he would rather bed and marry a human rather than her.
Which
and
is like, and
added that her own sister had also chosen a human over her. So like, not only did he shove a dagger in and like embarrassed her at the ball in front of everyone, but then he twisted the knife by bringing her sister back into this. And I'm just like, I'm not surprised because Tamlin is a dummy, but like, he's hecka dumb.
Yep, you are correct. Like, it's just so dumb that he did that. Like, I don't know why he's surprised that she gets pissed. This is not. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. Let me apologize by throwing this ball, and then he like is an ass.
Yeah. Anyway, it was bad.
Mm-hmm.
So Amarantha sort of like, I guess at this point they'd all had their powers taken and they were all cursed. And she had sort of given him the ultimatum, oh, I'll uncurse you if you are my lover and consort. And he's like, no way, you're crazy. And she says, fine, I'll give you another way to break your curse, like give you your power back. You have to find a human girl willing to marry you, one with ice in her heart that hated fairies and was willing to kill them. Dun, dun, dun!
What kind of girl could that be?
One very specifically who manages to match all of that criteria. But not only did she have to have ice in her heart that became willing to marry him, she had to have killed one of his own men on her own side of the wall in an unprovoked attack for hatred, so he would know how she felt about Jurian and her sister. And apparently the girl would break the curse if she told Tamlin to his face that she loved him and meant it with her whole heart. And I just find this a very specific set of criteria.
Yes, it is.
Like, this is a lot to tick.
Yeah.
For a curse. Anyway,
you're right.
It's sort of like, oh, and then on top of that, it's a lot.
Well, he has 7 times 7 years, so he's got a long time.
That's not that many, though, realistically.
No, it is. There is a lot to it.
Like, it's a lot of criteria to line up.
Yeah.
Also, the curse meant that they couldn't talk to anyone about it. So, like, they couldn't explain it.
Well, which makes sense. You can't tell the girl that she has to fall in love with you. Like, that would just be dumb.
She's not going to love you. So he sent a messenger across the wall every day for 2 years. They wouldn't all come back, but the ones that didn't come back, they weren't killed by young women. And I don't understand why this is a necessity.
I know. I was thinking the exact same thing. Like,
why does it have to be a young woman?
You're old. Like, you're fucking old.
Yeah. Why couldn't it have been a like 50-year-old woman?
Yeah, he's 500. Like, she doesn't have to be a spring chick.
Yeah.
19-year-old. Ugh.
Why couldn't my mother count?
Yeah.
Like, my mom is in her 60s. Why couldn't she have killed something unprovoked and fallen in love with Tamlin? She's still younger than he is by
Yeah. Like,
several hundred years.
yeah. Like the mercenary. Why couldn't it be her?
Yeah. Yeah. Just, like, I just think that he was a bit picky.
Yes. Yes, he was. And
Anyway.
realistically, it'd be better if the person who fell in love with him, he didn't love them back, because they're probably like, Amarantha's probably not going to let you live after you say that you're in love with Tamlin.
Yeah.
After what happened to her sister. So
That's true. So he got sort of tired after 2 years of losing his people. So he stopped sending people out. Some of the courts tried to rebel, and Amarantha slaughtered them all. Anybody who rebelled was slaughtered. And Amarantha was like super powerful, and she had taken the power from the High Lords. So essentially, they were all like under her.
mm-hmm.
So I guess to keep everybody under her thumb, they all the High Lords now live under the mountain with her. Like, that's where she keeps her court, under this like big mountain.
Yeah.
Alice calls her stupid because she could have broken their curse. And I'm like, yes, she could have. All she had to do was tell Tamlin she loved him.
Yeah. I don't blame her as much for this as I do for leaving in general. I'm like, I think it's dumb she left, but I'm also like, it's Tamlin's fault he sent her away. Like, she almost broke it. Like,
yeah, he could have held on for another couple days, I think.
Yeah. She was so close.
Yeah. Feyre sort of like gets that Amarantha is eventually going to come after the humans, and now especially that like she's got Tamlin with her, like there's nothing else distracting her.
Mm-hmm.
So she makes Alice show her the way under the mountain, and she arms herself the best she can, and Alice sort of takes her to this ancient shortcut and gives her some advice on what to do. So she says, don't drink the wine. It's not like the fairy wine on Callan May.
Yeah.
Don't make a deal unless your life depends on it. And don't trust anyone, not even Tamlin.
Interesting advice.
Right? Yes. She also admits that there's another part of the curse that she can't reveal yet, even though she's dying to. But essentially tells Feyre, like, keep your ears open, like, just listen to everything.
Mm-hmm.
So then she starts walking through this tunnel and finds her way under the mountain. And I feel like it takes her like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it takes very long.
It's a very short cut.
Yeah.
And
it must be magic.
I guess it's just funny that it takes her like friggin' 4 days to get from her place to Tamlin's place, and then like she literally walks like 5 minutes, and all of a sudden she's halfway across the continent.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's like walking through, and she finds her way under the mountain, and then she's like in like a deserted part of Amarantha's court. And she's like creeping along the hallways until she's discovered by dun 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 the Adder. So the Adder is a fairy that we saw briefly the last time, or not the last time, but I guess the Adder visited the Spring Court last week.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a very scary figure. He's like bat-like, but like creepy, and he's got like a creepy voice, and he's very scary.
Makes your skin crawl.
Yeah. And anyway, so he discovers her and like grabs her.
Yeah. So the Adder then drags Feyre to a throne room, and Feyre just mentions that there's a lot of fairies on the way. It's basically like a large cavern under the mountain, but like think fancy. Like there are chandeliers, there's a marble floor, there's music. It's basically a party happening.
Yeah.
And she's shoved onto her knees in front of the thrones. And I guess she looks up and she's like, that's Amarantha, because she's the one on the throne.
Mm-hmm.
And Feyre thinks that like she's beautiful, but she's not as beautiful as Feyre expected her to be, which is an interesting thing to think. And maybe a bit of jealousy. I don't know. Just
Well, on
an,
Amarantha's side, you mean?
no, on Feyre's side, because she's like, she's trying to get Tamlin. Like, I don't know. It's just such a weird, I don't know. It's a weird thing to think. Maybe she's thinking because all Fae are beautiful. Not all Fae, but like most of the high Fae are beautiful.
Yeah.
Maybe she just doesn't live up to that standard. But to each their own.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's a throne next to her, basically, and Tamlin is sitting in that one. And Feyre looks at him, and he shows no sign of recognition, which is surprising as fuck because, as we all know, he cannot hide his anger well. So I'm surprised he can hide any emotion well. You'd think that he'd be like bursting out of his seat, like, what the fuck right now?
Yeah.
But he's not. Nothing. He doesn't even look at her, basically.
Which, like, would piss me off. Like, if I just, like, risked my life to come and save you and you don't even acknowledge me, like, it'd be one of those moments where you'd be like, do you remember that we had sex a couple weeks ago? Like,
and he'd probably be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, I would say something incredibly stupid to him. And
you shredded my panties.
But you shredded my panties. Oh God. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But the adder, I guess, somehow knows who she is. And I'm like, maybe he can smell that she was there the day he was in the garden, or maybe he can just smell Tamlin on her this far after. Sorry. I know that's gross, but I don't know. He can figure it out. He knows somehow who she is. Maybe he heard the entire conversation with Alice and was just waiting inside the door and just snatched her. Really could be anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you'd think that they would have all of the entrances and exits guarded. So maybe it's that one. That one makes more sense. But I'll go with the smelling one. So Feyre's basically trying to figure out if she can kill Amarantha with the knife that she has on her, or like if she should kill the adder because he's the one holding her. But she knows she needs more time, especially since like she kind of suspects that Tamlin is under a spell because he's not paying any attention to her, which like makes sense. Feyre says, I came to claim the one I love, and I hate it.
I also hate it. I also hate it.
So,
like, it's a bit late for the L word, Feyre.
Oh, it's also just so gross. Anyway, I'm not into that line. Yeah. But Amarantha finds it funny, which I guess is maybe the best response you can hope for from her.
Yeah.
Amarantha kind of brings up torturing a human girl, and she motions to the back wall and says that that's basically where Feyre was supposed to be. So Feyre turns around, and of course, like I kind of think like crucified to the wall is the way that I kind of envision it.
Yeah. And also like I picture like burnt to a crisp.
Yes, but I feel like she's recognizable in some way. Like I feel like she has marks and bruises and like broken skin, and she's charred in places, like very beat to shit.
Yeah.
But Feyre can still tell that it's Claire better.
Yeah.
And apparently Amarantha kind of taunts Feyre a bit with this, and she says that Claire, not that she calls her by name, screamed that she had never hunted in her life and never seen Tamlin, which obviously is true.
Yeah.
And Feyre like kind of almost picks up on a red flag herself here when she kind of thinks that she can't believe that Tamlin let Amarantha torture Claire to save her. But she goes in a bit of a different direction with it, and she kind of has rose-colored glasses on, and she sees it as like him basically like sacrificing Claire to protect her, and not as like a complete disregard of human life, which is kind of like he doesn't care about other humans.
No,
But
that's true.
Amarantha even mentions it too, and she's like, do you still want to claim someone who would let this happen to an innocent person? And it doesn't really phase Feyre much, when I think maybe it should. But Feyre did come all this way, and like, what else is she gonna do? Be like,
Yeah.
oh, never mind, I'll just leave.
Yeah.
Like, obviously that's not gonna happen. So she, of course, says that she does.
Can you imagine if it did though? She was like, you're kind of right. Can I go?
Right? Do you think I think that if she did, I think that they should just let her go. Be like, yeah, okay, cool.
It's like, all right, see ya.
I'm gonna go back to my sisters.
We'll be across the continent if you need us.
Yeah. So Tamlin tells Amarantha that he's never seen Feyre before in his life. And it's like, Amarantha's kind of like, that's not even a good lie. Like, I can tell that you clearly love her too, because you just said that. Like,
Yeah.
that's a dumb move on your part, which is funny. I guess Feyre notices a ring that Amarantha has on her hand, which has a moving eyeball in it, and she has sorry, and she has a necklace with a finger bone that is a finger bone. It's just like, and at one point she calls the ring Jurian and talks to it like it's alive, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
You can't, an eyeball isn't a person. Like, it's weird.
But like, also, doesn't the eyeball move around?
Yes.
So like, obviously it's spelled to be somewhat alive. And I think Feyre figures out that she thinks that Jurian's consciousness is in the eyeball, right?
Yeah. And I think she talks to Lucian a bit later about it, and he like kind of confirms that it's actually him.
Okay.
But it's like, all I can ever think about is like, does she take her rings off when she's having sex?
No. Guaranteed.
So it's just a threesome. It's just a threesome. An unwilling threesome.
Yeah.
In all regards. Anyway,
do you know what
we'll get to that at some point.
Do you know what I can't help but think of?
What?
For some reason, whenever I think of like an eyeball moving around, I think of the movie Hocus Pocus and the book, and the bad animatronics of that book, and with the eye moving around.
Yeah.
Like, for some reason, that's where my mind goes. I know it's not a ring, but I can't help it.
No, I just also thought about going to the washroom with a ring on. So we're all over the place. Anyway. So back to the throne room. Feyre is sure that she's basically about to die, but for some reason, Amarantha makes a bargain with her because killing her would be dull. So that's the reason.
I mean, one puny human, all she'd have to do is snap her fingers.
Exactly. Feyre needs to complete 3 tasks, and she can have Tamlin. And Feyre counters that if she does complete the tasks, the curse should also be broken. And then her and Tamlin, and also Tamlin's court, can leave without Amarantha stopping them. And Feyre kind of counters like that because she does know that, like, obviously bargains need to be specific. And she is thinking that, like, literally 5 seconds ago, she got advice not to make bargains. So
yeah,
she's trying her best with what she can do. And Amarantha adds another element, which I think is kind of like, I don't know why she does this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
No, it's giving her too much leeway.
Exactly. She tells Feyre that she's going to give her a riddle, and if she solves it, they can all leave immediately, and the curse will automatically be broken. And basically, if she fails the tasks or answers the riddle incorrectly, she'll die. But if she dies during one of the tasks, then, like, if she fails one of the tasks, she's likely just going to die anyway. So that's just that. But if she answers this riddle wrong, I just imagine that she's just going to explode into pieces. Because if answering the riddle right automatically breaks the curse, then I assume answering it wrong would just explode her. That's because
Well, this is the worst part. Like, I feel like she should have bargained in that she should be able to give like
three guesses, yeah,
or like unlimited guesses. Because then when she's just doing stuff, she could just be like, air, fire, water, heart. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm just listing off Captain Planet things now.
Fair, yeah. So obviously Feyre agrees to this because it's this or die. And then she has this shit kicked out of her until she passes out. Like literally, I think it's like 3 fairies come and beat her up.
Yeah.
She wakes up in a prison cell, and obviously she's bloody and bruised, and she has no weapons. She takes stock of her injuries a bit, and she kind of hopes that they'll bring her water to clean them. And she also notes that her nose is really fucked up, and it's like the worst part of her.
Yeah.
She, and I'm gonna rightfully say, starts to worry about a lot of shit, like the tasks and the fact that she made a bargain at all. She starts to feel some guilt over Claire's death, and she's worried about her injury. And it's like, it's kind of the start of a low time for Feyre, where she's like starting to feel very bad. And she's in this cell, and all she can hear are whips being cracked and screaming. So she's not in a good place.
No. Yeah, I think she really starts to doubt herself here, doesn't she? And she's like, why did I
Yeah.
do this? Like, I am such a moron. Like,
Yes. Exactly.
yeah.
Because like she's a human. She doesn't have any magic. She doesn't have anything. Like it's not very smart, really, but she is where she is now.
Can I just say really quickly? So, like, these tasks, Amarantha has said that she's going to do one every month, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just one trial a month for 3 months. So when they said that in the book, I think there was only like 100 pages left.
Yeah.
Like, give or take. I was convinced that this was going to be the next book. Her trials.
Yeah.
Because
That makes
I was
sense.
like, there's no way they're going to fit 3 months into 100 pages when they just fit like 6 weeks in 100 in like 400 pages.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
yeah, no, you're right.
This was 100% where I thought, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to wait to read about the trials. Nah, buys. We're gonna cover them. Like,
don't you worry.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, because it does seem like, and even at the end of this week, what we finished talking about today, I'm like, there's so much more shit that happens in this book, but it's all very fast, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Feyre's in her cell, feeling very down in the dumps, and someone slips into her cell, and it's Lucian. Yay! Except for he's mad. He's basically just annoyed that she's there at all. Like, Tamlin sent her away to save her.
Yeah.
And if he didn't, she could have saved them all. But now she's there after the fact. And like, obviously he has very little faith in her. So he did come and he does fix her nose and helps with the swelling that she has everywhere, I assume, with his magic. And he leaves the bruises so it's not quite so obvious. And he explains that Amarantha gave him back a bit of his magic to try to entice Tamlin, I guess, to sleep with her, which is like an interesting tactic. I'm like, do you want Lucian to sleep with you? Like, I don't understand what you're going for here, but I guess. Lucian also explains that all of the High Lords are like under the mountain now, and they're all being forced to stay there until all of Feyre's trials are over. So like, before, I guess a few of them could come and go, a few people could come and go, like especially like we saw Rhys earlier last week. he was in the spring court. So obviously he could come and go a few times, but now nobody's allowed to leave at all until all of these trials are done. Which seems kind of crazy. I'm like, she's just a little human. Why are we making everybody care so much? But it's the story.
Yeah.
This is where we get about Jurian's eye. Lucian says that Amarantha, literally tortured Jurian instead of like helping Highburn in a pivotal moment of the war, and basically ended up losing the war for them.
Yeah.
In one of the like last battles, because she was so busy just torturing Jurian. And like, she's obviously very one-track minded. And he also says,
and very like self-centered too, right? Like everything is for her revenge, for her own gain. She's not like, I don't know, she doesn't seem like a very good team player.
No, definitely not. Yeah, so Lucian basically says that like all that was left after she was done torturing Jurian was one finger and the eye, and she wears both of them. And Jurian is basically going to live forever because of her power. So he's stuck in this like little ring, his consciousness, forever. Yikes. And Lucian also kind of says that like clearly she has a thing for eyes, because like you said earlier, she took his eye out, and he's like, I'm just glad that basically she didn't do that to me, because fuck.
Yeah.
So he tries to say a few more things to her, and she tries to ask about Tamlin, but he has to leave because the guards are changing, and obviously he can't be seen there.
Yeah.
It'd be a disaster. Kind of an unknown amount of time later, it's like at least days, possibly weeks, she's dragged to the throne room again. She's pulled in front of Amarantha, and Amarantha comments that if they're going to be so close for the next 3 months, that she should know her name. And Feyre doesn't want to give it to her. Obviously. And she's like deathly stubborn here, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Like we just saw what happened to Claire Better. Like obviously she doesn't want to get her family killed. Yeah. I don't know why that was so hard to come out, but yeah, it does make sense. Amarantha asks Resent if this is the human girl that he saw at Tamlin's estate last week. And he says, looks like it. And then she's like, but you said that Claire was the girl that you saw there. And he was like, all humans look alike. I don't know what to tell you. And Feyre like knows he's lying, because he recognized her from Calamni when he saw her in Tamlin's lunchroom. So it's like he would know her in a crowd.
Yeah.
But anyway, she just doesn't really understand why he's lying. The Adder grabs Lucian at this point, and Rhys holds his mind, all under Amarantha's orders. And 4 tall, red-haired high fae come to the front of, I guess, the crowd that's gathered, and just grin at Lucian while he's there, like, unable to do anything because Rhys has his mind in his hold.
Yeah.
Amarantha asks Lucian what her name is, and he doesn't answer. And then she asks Tamlin, and he doesn't answer. And then she asks his brothers, who these 4 tall, red-haired high fae are, all his brothers. And they say they don't know, but if they did, they would 100% tell her. Clearly trying to like keep on Amarantha's good side.
Yeah.
And you can tell that Amarantha's like almost about to tell Rhysand to like break Lucian's mind, when Feyre finally gives in and says that her name is Feyre. She's happy that she doesn't get asked her last name, and she doesn't give it. So that's a good thing. Maybe they won't find her family. And it's kind of clear in this moment that like Rhysand has a lot more of his power left than any of the other high fae, or he just had a lot more power to start with. So obviously Feyre doesn't know which one at this point, but it's clear that he is still very powerful.
Yeah. And obviously, like, she remembers when he sort of like, it said like he raked his claws against her brain, and she knew
Hmm.
that like he could shred her entire being and her entire mind with a thought. So like
Yeah.
she is scared of that power, obviously, because it's so easy for him to do. So like at this point, she's really scared of him.
Yeah, exactly. So Amarantha gives her the riddle now, and I'm actually going to read it out because I don't know. I know some people listen without reading the books, which is completely cool. But I found the riddle interesting to hear when I read slash listened to the books. But so the riddle is: there are those who seek me a lifetime, but never we meet, and those I kiss, but who trample me beneath on grateful feet. At times I seem to favor the clever and the fair, but I bless all those who are brave enough to dare. By large my ministrations are soft-handed and sweet, but scorned I become a difficult beast to defeat. For though each of my strikes lands a powerful blow, when I kill, I do it slow. So, just gonna say, when I first read this book, I did not get the answer at all. And like, I'm not gonna say what the answer is because we do end up getting it next week, but not until then. And if anyone wants to think about it for a while, they can, I guess. But
I found it obvious.
yeah.
Yeah, but only because like I don't know, I find that a lot of books that do like this sort of thing, like the answer is always sort of not the same, but like in the same similar.
Hmm.
So like I was like, "Oh, well, yeah."
Yeah. I I don't know if it was just like too many words that my and I think I listened to this part because like I said, I stopped right before Under
Yeah.
the Mountain and then I just listened to the books and I listened to them faster anyway.
Yeah.
But I think like I just heard it and I was like, nope, can't process that. And I just went on. But I did not get it.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, just an interesting thing. And yeah, Feyre doesn't get it. So she starts to think of diseases, and later on, she thinks of poisons and animals, which I think is like kind of smart on her part.
Yeah.
But
The poison and like illness one I think is a smart like path to take.
mhm. Yeah, that's kind of what it seems like it could be.
Yeah.
Um, but so I think she kind of panics here because she knows that like if she could just say the one right answer, everyone could be free. And it's like so within her grasp if she could just think of the one word that's right. And like I think that is probably overwhelming her a bit at this, especially at this specific point when she's in the throne room. And she can't think of it. Um, she also realizes in this minute that Amarantha said they'd be free immediately if she got the riddle right, but she didn't say the same thing about finishing the tasks. Like the word immediate wasn't in there.
Right.
But she kind of decides that like she has too many things to worry about right now that she's just going to forget about that for now because sanity, I guess.
Yeah. She got enough to back on her plate.
Exactly. She's back in her cell after this throne room fun, and she feels defeated again.
And they're
Um,
they're they're treating her quite horribly too, right? Like I think she
yeah,
says that like she's not given water on the regular, she's not given food at regular intervals, and like when they do give her food, it's like moldy bread. So like
hmm,
obviously she's not being well treated. So when she goes to do the tasks, she's not going to be at her best.
exactly. And I guess days after this, it's the full moon. And I guess that's what Amarantha said. It's like every month on the full moon, they're going to do a task.
Mm-hmm.
And she's brought to a new area in Under the Mountain, I'm assuming. I just assume this place has many different caverns.
Yeah.
And this one is like an arena of sorts. There's a huge crowd, and they're all basically jeering and booing at her. And she's brought in front of the thrones again. And Amarantha and Tamlin are obviously sitting there. and she says that she sees 6 other men who must be the High Lords of like the other courts just standing around, and she sees resent there. So she's like, makes sense that if there's 6 men in this one area, it's probably
The rest of the High Lords.
the rest of the High Lords, yeah. And there's kind of like, I envision it to be a mud maze between her and them. So Amarantha kind of like asks her to have a look at the maze. So Feyre leans over it, and of course she's just shoved in. And Amarantha says that Rhysand said that Feyre is a huntress, and that the task is to hunt this.
Ugh.
Which, like, what does that even mean? Obviously. Obviously we'll get there. But Feyre basically can hear the crowd placing bets on her, and like she just stares at Tamlin kind of to memorize his face because she's afraid that she's probably going to die, like, not unlikely. And a giant worm with many rows of teeth comes at her. And I cannot picture what this guy looks like at all. It kind of sounds silly to me.
Do you know what? I picture like a huge, like, think of like almost like a cyclone mouth, but instead of a cyclone, it's teeth. And I think that that's its whole face. And then it's just worm body.
Yeah, I don't know. I just can't. And like I've seen the memes and stuff where it's like the worm from SpongeBob, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could see that. It's just silly, but yeah. I don't know. I don't do well with picturing things, but anyway, whenever I picture it, I imagine Feyre shrunk down and just a worm.
Just a little earthworm.
Basically. Anyway, so she's obviously in this mud maze, and she basically realizes that this is like actually this worm's home, and they're all tunnels. So the worm knows its way around. So she starts to run, and she is like going around whatever. She sees a little opening that she could like squeeze through.
Yeah.
But on her way into it, she gets kind of stuck, and the worm is still coming at her, and she's obviously panicking, and she's just trying to pull herself through. And eventually she does squeeze through it, but she realizes that like the worm doesn't know where she went. So it clearly didn't see her squeeze through this hole. So it must be blind. And she's kind of like so shocked by this revelation that she doesn't notice the pit that she just like falls into in front of her. Cause she's also running full tilt. Like, I'm not saying that she just like wobbled into a pit. She's running, and she looks back, and she's like, oh, the worm's not behind me. He must be blind. And then she's like falling into a hole.
Yeah.
She can feel around her that there's like a bunch of bones, and she notes that they're like all different sizes, and there's a skull, and she's like, this is where the worm eats, I'm guessing. She's like, this is disgusting.
Yeah.
She's trying to scramble her way out of there, but the walls are too muddy to climb, and she can't get out. And like fairies are making fun of her and saying that she needs like a step stool or something. And it kind of gives her an idea, and she grabs one of the bones and stabs it into the wall. And she does that a few more times, kind of to make a ladder that she can put her foot on to like get herself out of there.
Right.
And while she's like starting to climb up this ladder, another idea flashes, the book says, into her mind, which kind of makes me wonder if it's her idea or if someone put it in her head.
Mm.
And I kind of hope it's her idea, because like I love
too.
this.
Yeah.
But and we never really get an answer, I don't think.
No.
But I do hope it's hers, and I hope it's just like, oh shit, I could do this. Like not actually somebody planting it. But anyway. So she starts to snap like larger bones, and she sticks them jagged parts up into, like, pointing upwards, and she sticks them all in the ground. She does like a lot. And one of the random fairies in the crowd is like, what's it doing? And Resand actually says that she is making a trap, and basically confirms that the Middengard worm is blind and it can only use smell to find her, and that, like, she's obviously trying to trap it and get it onto all of these lances that she's put in there. Um, and she does all of the lances sticking up. She leaves a tiny spot for her, and she climbs up the ladder, and then she, like, just covers herself in mud to mask her own smell. And then she goes to find the worm, because you can't trap a worm
It's not
if you're not.
following you.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's already eating somebody, and I'm like, did somebody just accidentally fall in, or did somebody push somebody in? Like, it's just like dog eat dog out here in this Fey world. It just seems wild.
Yeah.
um Feyre's kind of, I guess, behind the worm, can see it, and she cuts her palm to lure it to her, because she knows that it'll smell her blood. And she looks around the bend again, but the worm is gone. And then she's kind of like a bit panicked, because obviously the worm probably can smell her blood now. And she just hears Lucian yell out, "To your left," right before the wall on her left explodes. And she just takes off, and she is running. She put bones on the turn so that she could swing herself around there and gain a few seconds. So she does get to the pit before the giant worm. So she leaps into the pit, and she aims for the small area, but she does end up, like, feeling a pain in her arm, because she did land on one of them, which is not bad, really. Like, she could have landed on a lot more.
She also could have been eaten by a worm.
True. The worm follows her into the pit and kind of rolls to, like, attack her, and then only, like, ends up stabbing himself even more. So he basically just dies, which is kind of sad, because, like, he's just living his little worm life, and Amarantha's like, we're gonna fuck this guy up too. The fairies end up cheering for her, which I think is also rude. Like, I guess
Yeah.
it was like, it was very ingenious, it was very smart on her part, but, like, they were just betting on her dying. Like, you can't just turn around and
But
try to be
also,
nice now.
like, I understand that, like, a lot of them maybe have been there a really long time. Maybe some of them are on Amarantha's side, but, like, she is fighting to break a curse that would liberate a lot of people. Like, you would think that they would all be on her side and not be, like, you know, like, booing her or, like, anything like that. Or,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
treating it like it's not something serious, you know what I mean?
I know. And I guess it's like they just don't think that she's going to live long enough, so they just don't want to have the hope. But it just seems it seems really dumb. But who knows? I guess Feyre's pulled out of the pit, and she's brought in front of Amarantha again, but kind of like before. I think the maze is still in between them. She's still
Yeah.
very far away, and she still has a bone shard, and she, like, flings it at Amarantha. I'm thinking like javelin style,
Yeah.
and it basically hits the mud in front of her and gets her dress dirty. So
Oh, she pissed.
yeah. I guess the only thing that Feyre cares about is Tamlin. So she looks at him, and he looks pale from fright, but she thinks that he's proud of her for making it through, type thing. Like, yeah. Anyway, cool. Amarantha lets her know that a lot of people in her court got screwed over because they bet on her dying within the first minute, and a few bet on her dying within the first 5. But there was only one person that bet that she would live, and we don't really hear who that is. But as Feyre is being brought away, Amarantha yells out to Rhys, Resand to come over to talk to her. Um, Feyre's brought back to her cell though, and she realizes that her arm is super fucked. Like there's still a bone shard in it, and days later, it's still bleeding, and she's still covered in blood, and she's covered in mud, and she's feverish, and it's just not a good scene. Like it's
Yeah.
obviously the start of an infection.
Yeah. And like I think she keeps thinking in that scene like, oh, Lucian will come and he'll heal me, and like,
Yeah,
where is Lucian? Because he healed her nose the first time.
exactly.
And like
Yeah,
she knows that like he's really the only person that can help.
yeah,
So she's waiting for him.
yeah. And it's been a long time, and she's like, I don't have much time left.
Yeah.
Like if this actually starts being infected, I could lose my arm. I could just die.
Yeah.
So it's not a good time. Rhysand shows up from darkness into her cell, and I'm just assuming like he doesn't open the door. He just like slips under his darkness and then
Yeah.
becomes a man.
Yeah.
And he says that he's there to help because she made him a lot of money and he wants to repay the favor. So obviously it was him that bet on her.
Yeah.
But
So
she
so like he was the only person in the entire court that bet on her to win.
Mhm.
Like everybody else is a dick.
Yes, but also I'm like, I get why you wouldn't bet on her to win, but I just wouldn't bet at all. Like if this was my livelihood in the mix as well, I wouldn't probably bet on it. Like, I don't know. You wouldn't want to bet on her just in case Amarantha was like pissed about it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a lowly person. Like obviously, it seems like Rhysand can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, that's true.
He wants to obviously see her arm, and she kind of tries to refuse to show him, but he grabs it, and obviously that's super painful. He offers to heal her, but she asks what the cost is, and he kind of finds that funny because like obviously there's a cost to everything that fairies do, but he's impressed that she realizes that. And he says that he'll heal her arm in exchange for her 2 weeks per month.
Ooh.
Right? What does that even mean?
I don't know.
But he says 2 weeks per month she'll have to live in the night court after the trials. And she refuses.
That's a lot though. That's like essentially half her
Half
time.
your time. Yeah. That
Like
is wild.
like I don't know if he's just like if he's bargaining heavy on purpose, like if he's going
Yeah.
heavy on purpose so that he gets like a good amount. But like
Yeah.
2 weeks a month, like he might as well just say like 6 months of the year. It's like a Hades Persephone thing.
Oh, I wonder if that was the point.
No. Ah!
Ah! uh, Rhysand kind of tries to reason with her, but he's also a bit of a dick here. He tells her that no one else is coming, and we kind of hear what happened to Lucian and why he hasn't been there. So apparently, after his outburst, which saved her life, of yelling that the worm was coming on the left, Amarantha was pissed. But imagine.
Right.
But apparently, Tamlin stopped his stoic behavior and begged to save Lucian's life. And Amarantha forced Tamlin to whip Lucian 20 times.
Yikes.
Which is awful. And all Feyre can really think is how awful it must be for Tamlin that he had to whip his friend. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
You're dying.
Anyway. Yeah. Anyway, so obviously Lucian's keeping his head down right now, and he won't be down to help her. And Rhysand's like, you're dying. Exactly that. Like, there's nobody else is coming for you. You're dying. It's either this bargain or I leave and you're dead. And she refuses again, and he twists the bone shard in her arm to like kind of I guess show her how bad it is. I don't know why he does this. It just sounds so awful. And he says once he leaves the cell, the offer is gone. And she refuses again, and he starts to leave. And she kind of finally realizes that this is actually her only chance. She really is dying, so obviously she needs this healed. And they bargain a bit, and they end up agreeing on 1 week. So after all the trials are over, she'll spend 1 week a month in the night court. And
It's a pretty good deal.
it's not a bad deal. She lives.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. He heals her arm, and he cleans her too. So he like gets all the mud and dirt off of her, and she says she feels like she's had a bath, which I bet feels very nice after all of that.
Yeah. After spending days caked in blood and dirt.
Ugh, yeah. And as is custom in Rhysand's court, or so he says now, there is a tattoo that marks their bargains. So apparently it is a huge tattoo on her entire like lower left arm and her hand. And in the middle of her hand is
like
an
her
eyeball.
palm.
Yeah.
Is her palm? Yeah.
Yeah. Her palm is an eyeball. And she's kind of starting to panic because she knows that Tamlin's going to lose his shit when he sees this.
Like not like, oh, hey, honey, sorry, I had to make a deal so that I didn't die. But like, instead, oh no, my honey is going to be pissed that I have a mark from someone else. Like, it's just like priorities. Come on.
Yeah. And it's obviously, and I
Red
feel
flag.
bad for anyone. I feel bad for anyone reading this book for the first time, but it really is like stereotypical abusive relationship of like, another man can't be fucking near her.
Yeah.
It's so obvious on a reread, but like, it's wild. Anyway.
But even still too, like, it's sort of glossed over in this book, and Feyre sort of excuses it because of the nature of the species.
Yeah.
Like, he's a high lord, he's powerful, he's animalistic. So, like, you know, obviously it's like a marking territory thing, and like, you know, like almost like they're wolves or something. And like, well, obviously I can't be seen with another one because his alphaness will go off. And it's like she's excusing it and like letting it go that way.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, this is a highly intelligent species of humanoid person.
Yeah. And I guess it's probably also seems like the human world is a bit further back as well, where she even said that they don't have dowries basically. So it's like, I guess once you get married, you are the property of your husband after being the property of your father. So maybe it's a bit different. And I do feel like it is I don't know how, it's like a good book to read to see red flags in relationships that seem good.
Yes. Yeah.
Like the relationship seems good, but
Yeah, because again, we've been pointing out a lot of red flags, but we've both said our first time reading through, like, we did not see them at all. It's only after sort of reading the next book that you sort of reflect and you're like, oh shit. And then you reread it, and that's when you sort of notice all the flags. So it's sort of like, I don't know. It's sort of, it's like, it is a good way for you to like find, like, realize that sometimes there are red flags when you don't originally notice them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And even in loving relationships, they might not be what are best for you. Like someone might love you a lot, but still not be the right person or the right fit. And like love doesn't just fix everything.
Yeah. I actually think there is a line in book 2 that I think it's like, there's such thing as loving too much or something like that. I'm not going to say who said it. I'm not going to say about who or what, but
yeah,
it gets said.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's a bit of a sidetrack, but anyway, Rhys leaves, and later I guess maybe the next day or a few days, like time kind of passes a bit willy-nilly in between all these things, I find. But we get two, I guess, snapshots of Feyre's life where she's being given impossible tasks. So one day she's asked to clean a hallway and she's just given dirty water. So she's like panicking and she's trying to clean it up. They've threatened to like roast her on a spit if she fails. So she's like scrubbing this floor, but her water's dirty. So it just turns it all into mud and it's just an awful situation.
Yeah.
When somebody comes in, and she kind of recognizes them as the Lady of the Autumn Court because of her hair and her eyes. Like she looks just like Lucian.
Yeah.
So she gives Feyre actually clean water, and she says it's to repay her debt for Feyre giving her name, so Lucian didn't have his mind obliterated, basically. So she's able to clean the floor and complete this impossible task. And the guards aren't happy that she found a way to do it, obviously.
Yeah.
Because that was the point. So I guess the next day they bring her to a room and say that she needs to pick the lentils out of the fireplace before the owner comes back and flays her. So she's obviously working away trying to get some lentils out of this fireplace. And every time she gets them out, she sees more and more. So it's like, again,
It's
impossible.
like spelled or something. Yeah.
Yeah. The owner of the room comes back, and of course, it's Resent. He doesn't know why she's there, though, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And so she tells him that she was given this task, and he kind of assumes that, like, everyone probably thinks that he's going to find some sport with her because of who he is.
Yeah.
But she does counter and says it could be a test for him since he bet on her in the task, and clearly Amarantha wasn't happy about it. So I think that's pretty smart of her. Like
a test of his loyalty.
Yeah, a test of, yeah. Like we don't know if they're watching or what's going on, but I do think that it's smart of her to think of that.
Yeah.
They kind of talk a bit, but she does say that like Rhysand clearly knew that Claire wasn't her when he saw her. But he says that Amarantha plays her games and he plays his.
Yeah. He clearly like, so like we see an interesting side of him in that he is clearly on Amarantha's side.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like he stands up next to her, he does her bidding, like he seems to be a bit more powerful. Everyone calls him her whore, so they obviously like have a romantic relationship. But and like also Feyre like sees him and knows he's intimidating and scary and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So like he is on Amarantha's side, yet he's also playing things really close to the chest, like to his chest. Like why would he bet on her? Why would he help her? Like he obviously has his own agenda. We just don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, exactly. So she ends up asking him a lot of questions, really, but she asks how he is still so powerful. Like, did Amarantha not take away his powers like all of the other High Lords? But he says that like she did take most of his powers, and that like the power of like getting into people's minds is nothing of what he normally has. So like she's terrified of what it feels like now. I can only imagine what he'd be like fully powered. That's just. She also asks if he can shapeshift, and he says that apparently all of the High Lords can, which, thinking to future books, I think is interesting, and I'd like to see everybody's.
Me too.
I'd like to see them all shift.
Yes.
He does say that he prefers wings and talons than like full-on beast form, and he actually shifts for her, and his fingers and toes turn into talons, and he has massive like bat-like black wings on his back.
He's a bat boy.
He is a bat boy. Their exchange is like, it's very interesting because she knows that she really shouldn't be so bold with a High Lord. And she knows that he's terrifying
Yeah.
and he barely has any of his power, but she can't really stop herself, which is just kind of funny.
But also, like, where is she getting this, like, information in that she shouldn't be so bold with a High Lord? Like, is that another thing that's coming from Tamlin? Like,
Yeah,
from her time with Tamlin, like, oh, he's a High Lord. I shouldn't push him. I shouldn't press him. I shouldn't make him angry. And, like, it's
100%.
just say that to yourself.
Yeah,
You
but
know
it's
what I
also
mean?
like I do, but it's most of it. I don't even think it is him because it's how he acts. But I think it's she got warnings from like Alice and from Lucian
Yeah.
about Tamlin because that's how he is. So I do think it is his fault and it's what he projects, but it's like it is the idea that she's gotten. But I don't think that any other High Lord would take her asking them questions as well as Resand is.
No.
But I do get what you're saying. I just also think that like any other High Lord would be like, why are you even talking to me?
I think I think Dawn wouldn't be too bad, and I think Summer would be okay.
Maybe. I don't know. I kind of feel like especially Summer would just be like trying not to and Dawn too, but like trying not to be on Amarantha's radar any more than needed.
Okay, yes, like as they are right now. Yes. I'm talking about who they are more so as people, less so how they would act in this particular situation.
Oh, okay.
Cuz they're
Yes.
like on their own right now,
Yes.
right? So it's
Yeah.
sort of like a bit safer.
Yeah. I know, but we never really get to see how it would be. Like we see them later and it's just everything is so different that you
Yeah.
can't really compare it, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I do get what you're saying. Um but so obviously she's still talking to him and she asks if he knows the answer to the riddle. But he can't tell her. And she kind of like keeps asking him about it, but he says that like Amarantha forbid them to help her. And it's not like they can just ignore it. Like if Amarantha tells them to stop breathing, they have to obey her. It's like she obviously has the power to get them to do certain things.
Yeah.
And this is obviously one of them. I assuming it's like part of the challenge curse
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. But also,
So
like, it's obviously not help her with anything. It's just help her with the riddle.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
Because obviously she's been getting help,
Yeah.
just not.
Lucian yelled
Yeah.
and he didn't explode.
Yeah. So.
Um, Resand cleans Feyre up again, and then he magics all of the lentils into her bucket. And when the guards show up, he basically, I guess, takes control of their minds and tells them that she's no longer going to be doing chores and tasks and that they will not touch her ever again. And if they do, they're going to gut themselves and that they need to tell all of her other guards. And they walk her to her cell and they don't touch her on the way.
Yeah. And I think, doesn't he put in like a caveat on like giving her like regular food and water too?
I don't remember,
I
but that
thought
would
he
be
did.
nice.
I thought he did. Because
That would make sense.
I thought she said like her stuff started coming more regularly after that.
Yeah, he might have. I can't
Yeah.
remember right now, but that would make sense because even I think at the beginning of after the tasks, she's like she threw up because she couldn't eat the moldy food because
Yeah.
she was already feeling sick. So
Yeah.
it would make sense.
Yeah. Okay. So, after all that, I guess we're wrapping up for this week. We're almost at the end. I don't want September to be over.
I know it's wild. I feel like this book has just flown by.
I know. This is like, again, you guys all know this is my absolute favorite book. And I like, I love it so much. And I love talking about it, which is probably why our episodes are like really long.
Yeah. But we're probably going to do the second one sooner rather than later
Yeah.
because
We
It's just
need to.
necessary for
We
this
need to.
series. It's necessary.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna have to do the third one because the second one ends on the worst cliffhanger. But anyway, we'll get to that when we get to that.
Yeah. So yeah, that wraps it up for this week. If you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, please email us at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com. And be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Coffee and Co Read.
So, like we just said, next week we're going to finish A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. It's going to be chapters 39 to 46, which is the end. So make sure to follow along. And if you're enjoying our little chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you find our content. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you on the next page.